Proverbs 22:17 through 23:35. Devotional focus verse. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to thy soul. Proverbs 22:24 and 25. Some years ago, I remember seeing a skit at our church youth camp where a girl stood on a chair holding the hands of another person who was standing on the floor. As hard as she tried, the girl on the chair could not pull the person below up onto the chair. However, when the roles were reversed, the person on the floor was able to pull the girl off the chair with very little effort. It was a great demonstration of the fact that it is much easier to pull someone down than to lift someone up. That is not only true physically, but also spiritually. Choosing to associate closely with people who are not where they should be spiritually will influence us in a downward direction. Often the negative pulls are subtle, at least at first. We might be influenced to be discouraged, careless about spiritual matters, or critical. Perhaps there is a temptation to gossip, shade the truth, or engage in questionable activities. Although we might not realize that we have been affected, we can gradually become desensitized, and wrong behavior patterns could become acceptable and allowed in our lives. In time, that negative influence could even cause us to turn completely away from God. Solomon was aware of that danger. Our focus verses admonish us to keep away from angry people, those whose lives are characterized by frustration and outbursts of temper. He pointed out that relationships with such individuals would put one's personal stability and equilibrium in jeopardy because an angry person's path is full of snares that any misstep can trigger. The people we spend time with help shape us into the people we become. Recently, I read about a young musician who wanted to become more accomplished on her instrument. Her teacher advised her to play up, to practice with individuals who were highly skilled musicians. The teacher knew that playing along with them would help the young woman improve her own proficiency. What about us? We may not be musicians striving for musical expertise, but the same principle applies to our personal relationships. Those we associate with will impact who we are. It is true that we live in a world that needs to be reached for Christ, and we should not shirk our responsibility to reach out to those who need God. However, we must be cautious when developing close relationships. We need strong, spiritually encouraging friends to help keep us lifted up when the negativity around us threatens to get us down. We need associates who do not thrive on critical talk to maintain peace in our hearts. We need people who love and support God's Word to keep us full of hope. Are our friendships encouraging us toward a closer walk with God or pulling us away from Him? It is critical for us to answer that question honestly and make any needed adjustments. Background information. This passage begins the third section of the book of Proverbs, a portion known as the words of the wise men. Some commentators suggest that these proverbs, from Proverbs 22:17 through 23:11, were written by other sages and compiled by Solomon. The writing style has been associated with an ancient Egyptian wisdom book called Instruction of Amenemop, while the personal nature of the writings is reflective of parental instruction or a teacher's tutoring of a student. Proverbs 22:22 and 23 prohibit exploiting the poor. The phrase "in the gate" refers to the custom of having the judicial court located at the gate of the city. The teacher warned that God would judge those who oppress the poor and afflicted. Referring to business practices in verses 26 through 29, a warning is given regarding the danger of assuming responsibility for someone else's loan. The phrase, "Why should he take away thy bed from under thee?" points to the possibility of losing one's possessions as a result. Proverbs 23:10 admonishes against appropriating land from the fatherless. In Solomon's era, it was customary for the next of kin to redeem land from a relative who could not afford to develop it, and the Hebrew word for redeemer, in verse 11, indicates that God will be the substitute kinsman for orphaned landowners. The Hebrew word for hell in verse 14 is Sheol, meaning the grave. The inference in this verse is that proper discipline of a child can deter him from reckless choices and premature death. Verses 19 through 21 warn against associating with drunkards or those who habitually overindulge because their lifestyle leads to poverty and lethargy. Verses 22 through 25 encourage a son to honor his parents and embrace instruction. Repeating the thought of verse 16, the author pointed out that the son who lives wisely and righteously brings joy to his parents. A warning against sexual promiscuity is given in verses 27 and 28. Verses 29 through 35 describe the adverse physical, emotional, and mental effects of alcohol. Conclusion: it is wise to be cautious in our choice of companions. We will be influenced most by those we associate with most, so it is important to choose friends with characteristics we would like to develop in our own lives.
Chapter 22. Bow down thine ear, and hear the words of the wise, and apply thine heart unto my knowledge. For it is a pleasant thing if thou keep them within thee, they shall withal be fitted in thy lips. That thy trust may be in the Lord, I have made known to thee this day, even to thee. Have not I written to thee excellent things in counsels and knowledge? That I might make thee know the certainty of the words of truth, that thou mightest answer the words of truth to them that send unto thee. Rob not the poor, because he is poor, neither oppress the afflicted in the gate. For the Lord will plead their cause, and spoil the soul of those that spoiled them. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go. Lest thou learn his ways, and yet a snare to thy soul. Be not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for debts. If thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from under thee? Remove not the ancient landmark, which thy fathers have set. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings, he shall not stand before mean men. Proverbs Chapter 23. When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee. And put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. Labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. Wilt thou set thine eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Eat thou not the bread of him that hath an evil eye, neither desire thou his dainty meats. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee. The morsel which thou hast eaten shalt thou vomit up, and lose thy sweet words. Speak not in the ears of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of thy words. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. For their Redeemer is mighty, he shall plead their cause with thee. Apply thine heart unto instruction, and thine ears to the words of knowledge. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. My son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. Yea, my reins shall rejoice, when thy lips speak right things. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. Be not among winebibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. Buy the truth, and sell it not, also wisdom, and instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She also lieth in wait as for a prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick, they have beaten me, and I felt it not, when shall I awake? I will seek it yet again,